Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of PostBurnout.com interviews, I get through my back catalogue a little bit. This is an interview I did with Tristan Carroll, who's the guitarist for the Irish-Croatian new metal band Cell Games. This interview was recorded the day before the band released their latest single at time of recording, which was the Optical World. It came out on the 9th of May, so I guess this is from the 8th. And it's also funny listening back to this because we talk about the novelty of the new portal that opened up between Dublin and New York, and we since know what happened with that. So in this interview, we discussed Tristan's background as a musician, forming this band, the influence of anime and wrestling on the band, the influence of Jodorowsky's Dune, which is a documentary that I'm particularly fond of, on the latest single. He talked about various other things like Anthony Kiedis and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Kiedis' biography. We also discussed their potential for releasing an album or an EP at some point down the future. We discussed their plans in terms of touring. We also discussed the resurgence of new metal as Tristan sees it. And one other thing I want to note is that in this interview we're discussing an upcoming gig in June, which is obviously come and gone. However, this Saturday at time of upload, Cell Games will be performing at The Gathering, a night of music in aid of Enable Ireland. It's organised by Barry Carlin of the Who Art Thou podcast, which is a podcast that I listen to regularly. I'm a fan of. I'm not in any way affiliated, I just legitimately like the show. Also performing that night are Grey Stag and friend of the website Raining in December. That takes place this Saturday, August 17th at Sinead in Dublin. Tickets for that gig are available from Eventbrite and the link will be in the description of this episode. Thanks very much and enjoy.
Hey, you hear me?
Hey Tristan, how's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad.
It's nice to meet you, man.
Hey, too.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I was going to ask, man, is before we even get into Cell Games, I was wondering if I could get a little bit about your background. I mean, what kind of got you into playing music and wanted to be a musician, and kind of what was your early musical loves?
Um, I suppose in the most technical sense, I started playing music at like early primary school because everyone played in whistle. And
Okay.
then I was kind of picked to play the flute as well. And I think it's maybe just because it was physically bigger and I was physically bigger. um,
If you want to go
um,
back, you could say you played xylophone as a toddler.
yeah, very, very possibly. I had like one of those like little fake vinyl players that it plays like the discs don't make a difference, one of those kind of ones.
I like the
Um,
idea of like Amadeus, the film with like a kid on cell phones. Like, oh my God, he's brilliant. He's a prodigy.
Um, I think it was okay. I don't know. We'll never find out. Um, but from there, um, maybe predictably with how Cell Game sounds a little bit, when I was, I think maybe 10, I started watching wrestling. I was introduced to wrestling and the music in wrestling blew my mind.
Yeah.
It was all this like all the kind of guitar stuff just like blew my mind. And like, it's like, if you listen to Cell Game stuff and especially your demos, you can kind of see like, I've taken sort of the template for a lot of that. But I got into like other bands that were kind of out at the same time around that. Like I think maybe like I got into Nickelback because they were like a rock band that was on the telly in front of me, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What is this?" Um, and I was showing like a vague interest in guitar, but not enough to really pursue it.
Yeah.
And then my dad, he can and can't play guitar. He knows three chords, but he would need to look up what they're called.
Okay.
Um, and he was like, "Look, you've obviously got some sort of interest. Here are the three chords I know. Here's how you read the diagrams." I think one of them was F, which if anyone who's listening plays guitar, it's like that's
The first
bonkers. Why
fret.
would you start? Yeah, it's like why would you start someone on F? Like that's mad. But like that's he uses G, C, and F to tune the guitar, which I think is
Okay.
insane as well. Like he doesn't know anything about like the fifth fret. He just knows like an arpeggio should sound like da 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 da. He gets through like all the strings that way, and it's like yeah. I mean, like I teach guitar, and that's not how I teach it. But like, he showed me those, and then from there, I think mainly from magazines, I kind of figured out how to actually play the stuff that I like to play.
Right.
And then from there, like I was very kind of still into like the heavies, and obviously like I still am, like I'm in cell games.
Yeah.
But I started to then kind of branch out gradually from there. And I think I would have been I might have been 12 or 13, I think, when the Chili's played Slain, and I didn't go because I wasn't into them. And
Yeah.
like I was 12, like no one's reading Slain. But then the DVD, the DVD that came out, and I think I knew bits and pieces of Chili's probably because the guitar magazines told me like, oh, here's the riff that can't stop, isn't it great or
Mhm.
whatever. And the um the DVD that came out, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind that for Christmas. That looks like it's pretty cool. And I watched that, and I was like, you can just make stuff up as you go along.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that you could improvise, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is you can, so if you just know where all the notes are, you can just
I always remember,
do
sorry,
whatever.
not interrupt
No,
you,
you're
but I
fine.
always remember like with that Chili Peppers gig you're talking about, I always remember the one that's stood out for me was when they did the cover of the Havana Affair by the Ramones. And
Oh yes,
it was just totally like different, and just kind of shows like as you mentioned, just how how you can actually cover something. It doesn't have to be a one for one parallel as well.
yeah, exactly. And like the big one for me as well was I didn't really know how backing vocals were, and then I was like, oh, you're above or below the lead
Yeah.
one, but by like a set interval, you have to know what the intervals are, or you can go ooh and ah, and you can do stuff. I was like, this is mad. Why had no one told me this before? And I think it probably became like insufferable for a few years then, trying to do that in every band I was in. Like I wouldn't learn any lead. I still am terrible at learning lead parts because I'm like, you can just make it up. But then sometimes it's like, yeah, but can you learn it? It's like, I might, we'll see. But, and even actually with the Chili's, I only recently realized as well um, that when Stadium Arcadium came out, so I would have been like 15, and I was big into that. In hindsight, it's not amazing. I just liked it a lot because it was like new Chili's. It was like
Hmm.
the band I like, but there's more of it now. Um, but I listened back to it like maybe a year or two ago, and I realized listening back to like some of the guitar stuff that Jean Frusciante did in that, I was like, this is why like I think harmony guitar is so funny.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny to play harmony guitars. Like I have a friend who occasionally like I'd be doing stuff with him, like cover gigs normally or whatever, and to be a guitar part, and like he could feel me about to do it, and I look at him and I just like do something third above him, and he'd be like, like he won't laugh, he'd just go, yeah, very good. But I'm like, but I just think like I just think they're gas to do. Like even in one of our songs, um, we tracked like the first guitar, and I was like, oh, Josh, just rewind me back there. I have an idea.
Yeah.
And then I just sat there for the whole 30 seconds of the verse, playing like my part. I started up, I just looking at him, and he was like, right, do you have an actual idea? It's like, yeah, I have an actual idea. And it was more harmony guitars. But I only realized afterwards because like I was never huge into Iron Maiden, I was never huge into Thin Lizzy, which would be the
Right.
obvious one for harmony guitars. But just that album where there's too many harmony guitars, like they
Yeah.
don't, it's too much. It doesn't serve a purpose. But I'm just like, this is mad. It's so, and it's just, I just think it's really funny to do. So whenever I can fit it in, I will. Um, Influences, I think like I hope I'm never not being influenced as well. I'd like to think like even though like there are in like there's studies that are like, look, when you're like 14, that's when your brain's like the most elastic, and what you
Yeah.
think is the best thing at 14 is what you think is the best thing forever. And I'm like,
Jesus, that's grim.
yeah, yeah. Well, not necessarily like that. Like, I think it's like the best thing forever, but like that's kind of like when your tastes are sort of set a little bit, or
Right. It dictates your kind
like
of
yeah,
personality or somewhat.
a little bit. Like you're never going to like go back and say that actually it's bad. Like I think Blink 182's self-titled album is still like one of the best things I've ever heard,
Yeah.
and I can't be objective about it
Right.
because
Right.
I'm like,
No, totally.
yeah, I'm like this is amazing, and in hindsight, I can go like, oh, they just made a new wave album. That's crazy, but yeah, but like so like a lot of stuff that like I liked is kind of set in stone, but then like I didn't stop listening to stuff, but uh Spotify does have to go like, I think you like this, and it's like, yeah, of course I will. It's from like they just go like, you want something from 2003? It's like, yeah, of course I want something from 2003. Give it to me.
One thing actually about like the kind of the Spotify thing I was thinking of like when when you just kind of like let it play, it seems to me just to play kind of the same stuff over and over again. I'm like, I've fucking heard this before, show me new stuff.
It does that a lot of time. Like sometimes it'll do like artist radio at the end of an album,
Yeah.
and it'll play songs from the album. It's like I just put this on. Like you
I
were
just
there.
listened to it. Yeah. No, and actually that's the
Yeah,
annoying thing too, because like, when you listen to an album on Spotify, you kind of like, it's deliberate and it kind of crescendos and it's like, that was the album. And then it's like you don't even get a chance to kind of like breathe it in before like something else just starts.
yeah. Especially if you're checking out something new as well. If like, I listen to like an album I hadn't listened to before, and you
Yeah.
get to the end of it, like, oh, this is taking a bit of a turn, and like I
Yeah,
like jump
yeah.
back to screen and be like, oh, it's because it's a different band. Oh, all right, cool. Brilliant.
One thing I wanted to ask, just based on what you were saying then. So you mentioned kind of like, kind of like wrestling was kind of the music from wrestling, the intro songs. First of all, WWE or WF, will we be talking about this time?
It would have still been WWF when I started
Okay.
watching, and I was still watching when I changed to WWE. But then shortly afterwards, I sort of dropped off, and I don't know if it's because it's. I think it's because when I was like 11 or 12, I couldn't have two big interests. I had to either
Yeah.
like be full on interested or follow into music, and it's like I'm a bit more into music. We can cancel Sky Sports, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just got like more follow into that, and then like kind of dip back in and out. But Colin or Maximilian, I don't know. Maximilian's his stage name, but like everyone knows his name is Colin. And if you say Maximilian,
Okay.
if you go to that gig, you're like
He's not going to get
Maximilian.
angry, claim I dox him if I say his real name, is he?
No, like even at gigs, like someone would be like, "Hey Max," he'd be like, "Me?" Hey, you. It's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." He's way more interesting
Yeah.
than I am. Like he's a little bit older than me, and he like knows stuff way back, and then like watched through when I watched, didn't drop off when I dropped off, and is still more into it. So like because I'm the only one in the band who also is sort of okay with wrestling, like he'd have all the references for me, and I just be like, like I don't know, I'm on the periphery of what you're talking about.
So would the big one, like once you said that, I was thinking of in terms of an intro song was The Undertaker's 'cause he used Roland. I was wondering,
Oh
did that
yes.
have any influence on you, or is that just
Oh,
coincidental?
oh, definitely. Like I think the fact like new metal was like all over it at the time.
Yeah.
Like that's because kind of me being like, oh, new, I'm into it, and like it's everywhere, and it's in wrestling at the time. And like the big one in wrestling, um, was like the My Way
Yeah.
video package for Mania X7. It's X7 or 17. I heard people give out either way.
I don't know.
17.
I'm not gonna commit.
Yeah, but like that's the big one, and like it's like oh, it's like it can't not have shaped my brain a little bit. I think seeing that,
Yeah.
but definitely, and actually the big one in wrestling for me, which is insane because I think it coincided perfectly with me getting like a little bit more into music than I was into wrestling was the following year. It was WrestleMania 18. They had lots of music. I think they had, unless I might be blending 2 years together, but I think they did have like two live bands play three songs over the course of the night. So if I remember right, um, there's some very dated, very American references. Saliva opened it. Obviously, they probably did the anthem, and then Saliva opened it with their single that was like the song of the show. Um, Drown and Pool played a song somewhere in the middle of the thing. Like I think it wasn't before a match. It was just like an interlude, like music performance with Drown and Pool playing a song. And then Saliva played the Dudley Boys down to the ring as well. And I imagine that's the same WrestleMania because like, you wouldn't book Saliva two consecutive WrestleManias.
Unless they just really fucking nailed it the
Yeah,
first time, you're like,
yeah.
gotta get him again.
Yeah, but like I had that on like that one taped off not even our own telly because I don't think we had Sky Box Office or we didn't have Sky Sports. So like my dad's work friend had that and he'd tape it and I'd get off my dad like the following Monday and work and like I would just wear out those bits of the tape, just fast forward through to watch the songs. And I was trying to figure out it's like how are they making these sounds? What is this?
Um, sorry, I just think that's really funny. Just like, yeah, skipping all the wrestling. It's like, I don't know, watching porn and skipping all the sexy. And it's like, go on, get the dialogue.
Maybe I do that as well, you don't know. I know I don't.
um, yeah, so when like so obviously like that was kind of like your around there in terms of like the music you were kind of like listening to. When was guitar your first instrument, and when like what would you have been when you like started picking up an instrument and actually playing, and kind of what made you actually like what was your first kind of like bands that you were in, and
Uh, yeah. So in terms of like actually doing music and not just like doing it because it's in school, guitar was definitely the first one. And I started, I think, when I was 11. I think, yeah, I
Mhm.
was 11 because it was like the summer between fifth and sixth class. So like at the end of fifth class, like just in the summer, I started playing. I came into sixth class as like, oh, he plays guitar now, I guess, which is weird. Um,
Did you bring it in?
uh, I must have at some stage because like
Okay.
I live walking distance from the primary school, so like it was not a huge ordeal for me to do.
Yeah.
But then in secondary school, then I ended up in not many bands throughout the course of secondary school. I think when I was in first year, I made some friends with some lads who were like in second year, and we started like just doing bits. I think we just played like a lot of Blink covers because they're easy to play, and like jamming out stuff where like we didn't really know how to jam, but we just
Mhm.
like had a riff that we'd play for 4 minutes,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And we found like a drummer who was again like a year above us again. I think he was the one who wanted to do loads of Blink because he loved Travis Barker. So it's like we'll do all of Enema of the State. And I was like, cool, if you can do it. But kind of played with that for a bit and kind of it's one of those things, like where you're in like the start of secondary school and like you're in a band and you take it so seriously, even though it's a
Yeah.
cover band and you're
Yeah.
not getting paid. You can't go into pubs, but you're like
Yeah.
this is like the band. It's like, but it just covers and not in pubs. It's like occasionally in school. Um, I think then I probably got into like other bands with people in my own year, from maybe like third year, transition year onwards. I
Hmm.
was kind of doing stuff with them, and again, it's just all covers. Uh, Towards the end of secondary school, I was in another cover band that I think we kind of were on these bands. We purported to like do cover gigs and be a band that's doing our own stuff, but it's
Yeah.
like, well, like
We were like that too. I was in
we're
a band like that.
yeah, but it's like, but like we are only playing covers. Um,
Yeah.
and then occasionally putting like three songs that aren't covers into the set, and people know them just because we play here all the time and they know them.
Yeah.
But and then after I think maybe concurrently with that or a little bit after that, I tried doing my own kind of acousticy stuff. Just because I got really into like the idea of doing like all that finger styly drummy guitar stuff,
Mhm.
and I got really into doing that. And I was like, oh well, like if I'm going to do this, there has to be songs. Uh, and I did that for a few years. I think I might even done that through college, and realized like I don't even like this.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm just doing it because I like the idea. But then I got to like the end of college, I was like, this isn't fun. No one's into this. I'm not into this. I don't I don't want to be a singer. It's stressful. I don't want to be up there like making myself vulnerable singing about stuff. I just want to play stuff. Um, and then like I think after that it was like just again cover bands for a good while. Um, and then I think I kind of this is probably just going to come up later in the podcast based on the title, but I kind of got burned out on that a little bit. And
Ayo.
they didn't do really anthems for a little bit. Like the cover band I was in slowly dissolved. Um, can't remember if we kind of just weren't playing as much or the bass player moved away. But I know he's definitely moved away. But I can't remember. I can't remember
You
which
can't
came
remember which
first.
came first.
Yeah, I can't remember if like it
Sort
was
of the
like
chicken and egg
yeah.
situation.
I don't know if it was like oh we may wrap it up because he's moving or
Yeah.
he like we had already wrapped up and he was moving. But
Or maybe
like
the dissolvement of the band kind of forced his decision to move. It was the only thing he was
like
sticking around for.
imagine that like he lives in Germany and he's married with twins now and it's like if the band is still together who knows.
It's crazy what you could have had.
uh, if you were still playing Danger Zone down in the pub, I mean, who knows?
So then from there, I guess to actually starting Cell Games, I mean, what was the kind of like timeline there? I mean, how did Cell Games kind of come around? Because I've been aware of you guys for a while now, and I think since at least the end of last year, sometime I forget how I discovered you guys, but I actually saw you guys for the first time at Workman's for the Next Big Thing Festival. I was at
Oh,
that,
gas.
and yeah, and man, one thing I really liked about your show was that I don't know if this is intentional or if this is just how I read it, but you guys aren't afraid to get like a little silly with what you're doing, and I think that kind of
Oh, we're
like
so
frees up.
sick.
But I think that frees up the
Yeah.
audience in a lot of ways. I was saying this to another guy I interviewed called Race Car Bed. He does a similar thing where I feel like by kind of like being a little silly, it kind of takes the because I find that audiences are very like what do you call it, like very self-conscious in a lot of ways. And I find
Yeah.
that when someone's doing something like emulating it, they can emulate the kind of antics and it kind of frees them up to actually enjoy the music a bit more. I don't know if that's like an intentional
I,
stage thing or
I think a little bit of it is just kind of the way I am. I don't think we could be like it's a very metal band thing to like have these things that are off like to be like if you're playing Workman's to be like Workman's family, are you with us? It's like what are you talking about, man? Like like what we're doing is a bit absurd. Someone actually I remember someone got out to me before because they'd only like seen me gig and then kind of seen me in little bits and pieces in real life, and they were like you're so different on stage. Like when I see you in real life, I want to ask if you're all right. And it was like, it's like, oh yeah, like I'm doing an impression of a confident person. And, but I
You're
think
doing
like,
like the melancholic acoustic guitar music.
yeah, yeah, like I think you have like, I don't know, I think I just naturally because it's like I'm having fun when I'm doing it, so it's just fun to like act a bit silly when
Yeah.
we're doing it. And like if I have to say something in between songs, I can't be mad serious about it. So I think that's part of it. And like I suppose like the music is a little bit silly. Um, like the songs, like we're serious about doing the songs, but like they're always like not necessarily strictly about, but kind of through the lens of like one of our singles was I can't explain it better. It's kind of like he's talking about himself, but it's like through the lens of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I'm like, all right, so like it's a song about an anime. Or like, yeah, like the band's called, the band's called Cell Games.
Yeah, Dragon Ball
Which
Z.
yeah, kind of like a Dragon Ball Z thing. And I was like, I'm only now, more like 3 years into the band, starting to watch Dragon Ball Z. And I'm like, when does Cell show up? What does it mean? So
When do we get to the fireworks factory?
exactly. Like, so because I'd love to know what the band means.
Okay.
But like, it just is a little bit silly. Like we can't take it like it's not that serious. It's
Yeah.
it's our lads playing new metal, you know.
Yeah. Actually, what's that when the band kind of formed, what's the kind of new metal aspect, something that, was kind of like from the get-go, this is what we're gonna do, or was it just kind of like gradually what kind of evolved?
Um, it the band kind of started from a lot of demos I had, and they were kind of written in the format of music from wrestling, which is like there is a short bit at the start to let you know who it is.
Mhm.
Then there is like the big bit where whoever it is coming out, and they announce who they are, where they're from, what they weigh. And there's a bit of commentary over that. Then there is like just waffle while that happens, and then there's like the bigger bit where they do the four corners, and then
Yeah.
there's a bit they can do, and like that's kind of the way I'd write the songs. So I'd have all these demos, um, and I started the band with Colin. Like if you go back to like the first two Cell Games things,
Mhm.
um, there's no social media from them because their Instagram got hacked last year, so all the old stuff is gone. But
Oh, Jesus.
there's still remnants of like old Cell Games around. But I started the band with him. We were trying to do something pre-pandemic, and I think I did be brought it with the idea of like, Colin, we should start a new metal band because prior to that, again, we had done these charity gigs for Chester Bennington's anniversary,
Mhm.
and we learned hybrid theory all the way through for the first year. And at the end of that gig, I was like, Colin, I love this album. I love new metal. Like I'm all these demos I have, they just are new metal kind of because that's what
Yeah.
comes out when I play it. Like they're all kind of metally stuff, and I guess like there's not big lead sections and like gradually I started like putting like the more electronic stuff in. Initially I was very resistant to the electronic stuff because it's like I have to be able to do it live. So it's all this kind of guitars and like pre-pandemic I was big into like I had demos that had keyboards. It's like, oh I'll rewrite that so it's a guitar part now. And it's like
Mhm.
I might do like a second guitar part, but like live I'll prioritize one of them. And it never got to live because we just kept like looking for members and we kind of half had a drummer, but like things didn't work out time wise with him and we were like running through auditions for bass players. Um and ended up like not really finding anyone. And then that's like the end of 2019. And so at the start of 2020, we were like, right, well, can't do that.
Yeah.
We can't be going into the city centre auditioning people and like auditioning for what? There's no gigs. There's no music now. So I was like, God, like, can we just like the band is us now and it's a new metal band and we will just do that. So yeah, to actually get back to the question, that's probably a later question, but to get to the question, like
No.
I just approached it with the idea of kind of like we should be a new metal band because we're covering it right now and this is great, but we should like do it, but it's our stuff.
Yeah.
So like it's very consciously like a new metal band, which it, it kind of turns some people off, but I think it's come back around enough now where lots of people are like, actually, I do like new metal. Like it's not
Yeah.
as tainted as it was. People kind of like, you know what? Yeah, it's like I don't think enough people who did like it are like, yeah, I liked it. It's fine. Like don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Actually, I noticed a similar thing happened recently with kind of pop punk and emo. Like the resurgence of them, they were kind of like very into the 2000s. They were like, even though they were really popular, much like new metal, they were quite maligned. I remember people being like being afraid to admit that they liked it and stuff. Where now, like I noticed there is a budding scene of pop punk music kind of rising up. New metal, on the other hand, I mean, do you find there's a resurgence of, or do you guys kind of think you're the only one in the game at the moment?
I think there's definitely a lot of it. I don't know if as many people are as explicit about it as we are, where we are going like you know all our press stuff, all our bios say like Dublin new metal band. Or,
Yeah,
like I email people going like, hey, we're Cell Games Dublin new metal band.
yeah,
But like things, lots of bands are incorporating stuff from it a little bit more. Like Code Orange had a song last year or the year before that sounded like a Power Man 5000 song. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like it's also just kind of like creeping in a little bit. Idle Discourse are another one where like people have said to us like, "Oh, you're both new metal, you should do stuff." And it's like, "We'll do stuff," but like I don't think they're a new metal band.
Hmm.
Just their vocals are rap, but they're more like I don't know the subgenres, kind of more genty
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and more like Architects kind of a thing. But like
Mhm.
you know, like it is a new metal thing to have a rapper in the band, and like there's so like we're more explicit about it. There are bands like there is, especially online. There's a lot of stuff that's just like the entire social media accounts just dedicated to the idea of new metal,
Mhm.
and like there's I think there's crazy ass moments in new metal. I think that's that's what I follow on a few platforms, and like he's
There's
just
plenty there. I
way
say there's plenty
yeah
of material for something like that.
yeah. He's just like really flying the flag for new metal as an idea, and
Yeah.
being like, yeah, the people making new metal now, and some people are being very blatant, like you know, like yeah, we're making new metal. There's you know, there's Fred Durst samples in it, and then there's other people who are like not explicitly making like saying that it's new metal, but you know, like it sounds like Slipknot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's got kind of all like kind of the bouncy stuff and the like yeah, it's just turntables in it. Like who are we fooling?
Yeah. Actually, I noticed even when new metal was kind of like in vogue at a time, like there was always this debate about, which bands exactly constituted new metal, like, bands like Deftones and System of a Down, and there was like all these kind of acts that people would be relying to get kind of defensive, like they're not new metal.
Yeah.
Do you find like now, I don't know, like um do you find like that debate about what constitutes new metal is still a thing, or do you find like whatever?
I think there is still kind of some debate about, it, especially like this whole thing of like Deftones, they're like a huge new metal band who insist they're not a new metal band. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, but then I was talking to someone else before, it was like me, Colin, and someone else, and they're like, "What's the best new metal album?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Toxicity, 100%." And they're like, "It's
Mhm.
not new metal, is it?" Like, what do you mean it's not? What? Like
Yeah.
they're like, I think it's more like alt metal. I was like, man, I don't know. There's kind of like there's sort of like this nebulous thing of like from like 1994 to 2004. If it had guitars in it, it's kind of like, oh, it's new metal. I'm like, I don't know. Like my big thing with new metal, I think as well, is Saint Anger killed it. That's my my big like tinfoil hat new metal thing because it was kind of like you know it was a cool thing, and then to try and like fit in, your dad tried to get into the cool thing you like, and it made it not cool anymore. It's like if you're into skateboarding and your dad was like, "Oh son, I've learned an ollie," you'd be like, "Uh." I don't think I'm into this anymore. Having said that, like we are, some of us are like rapidly approaching the age they were
The
making
daddy.
Saint Anger. But I do think it is like Metallica trying on new metal a little bit. Like, oh, there's no
Yeah.
solos and it's all tuned down. But then also the songs are 7 minutes, and it's like it's not really.
Yeah.
Like, "Dad, you're doing it wrong. No, it's not new
Well, it's
metal."
like when, with Load and Reload, when they kind of tried to do like the alternative thing, there was also like a bit of country with things like Mama Said and all. It was kind of like a weird transitional period until like that Magnetic, when they kind of went, okay, this is kind of what we are.
Yeah. So just like, right, you didn't like any of that. We'll just do this. And then it was like, why is it clipping so much? Can you not just do it right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, the fucking Sound Wars.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then like in general, I mean, how do you find the kind of like when it comes to the gigs that you guys play? I mean, like what kind of like shows are you playing? Or is it mainly just like metal shows? I mean, obviously, I was saying like like Next Big Thing, which is just like a hodgepodge of kind of everything, every kind of up and coming act, which I think is actually a good sort of place to see a band like Cell Games. But what sort of shows you get booked for? Is it metal nights, or is it kind of more versatile, or how's that kind of work?
It has been, unless I'm forgetting one, but like it's largely been metal gigs pretty much. Like lots of favors, lots and lots of like there was
Yeah.
a point where we did, I think we were in favors like every week or every 2 weeks. And at one point we did like back to back favors, this like one upstairs and one downstairs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, like we had like a joke T-shirt made just for the just for the four of us. That was like the summer tour brackets of Fibbers. But like it's always the kind of like metal gigs or like metal adjacent. We did
Yeah.
a gig with a pop punk band at the start of last month. And it wasn't a it wasn't like a conscious decision by like either of the bands to be like, oh, it would be cool to blend these together. It's just because like we're friends and like I knew one of them from school, and he's like, we're doing gigs now. We want to gig with you. I was like, cool. And like that went down well
Yeah.
because it's like I think even if you're not strictly into the metal, I think our gigs are fun enough that you can kind of get away with doing whatever. Like we were in between like an indie band and a singer-songwriter in Workman's when you saw us.
Yeah, yeah.
And 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 I, I just was there like not having dinner, getting all these free orchard teas because they were sponsored, being up there like, man,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
face is so warm. I'm gonna have to like drink this free oat milk on stage. I was like, this is my dinner now, it's just free oat milk. And I couldn't get the twisty thing open. I was like,
I
oh my
remember
God.
that. Yeah, the oat milk was a sponsor. That's the only time I've ever seen like just going up and being like, I was half tempted to buy one, but I was like, I probably shouldn't. If they gave the
I was just,
free,
yeah,
they
I
gave
was
the
like an
free
oat
ticket
milk,
for the Orchard Thieves, I'd
yeah,
be like, yeah, maybe if you give one
yeah.
them a try. Go on.
I was an oat milk truther for about a week until I was like, oh, this one's really good. And I looked it up and it's like, oh, it's more so catered towards like coffee shops to use as their
Yeah.
milk they use, just price wise. And I was like, oh, but I don't want that. I drink my coffee black anyway. So who's like, what am I doing with this? But I was just really into it. Like for the duration of that carton staying in date, I was so into oat milk.
Yeah. I want to talk. I don't want to talk about oat milk. I want to talk a bit about a bit about the band's influence. You mentioned the kind of anime influence and the wrestling influence. I think like in a lot of ways, I mean, like it really does feel like Cell Games as a whole really does feel like a kind of almost a throwback to like 20 years ago into the thousands of kind of like not only like the kind of music that was popular there, but kind of the culture. And again, I mean, like are these things kind of like sort of conscious things that you're melding together, or is it just an amalgamation of the things that you guys grew up in, which as you mentioned, like kind of subconsciously or even consciously influences you as you go, and it's stuff that kind of sticks with you and resonates with you, and now it's just kind of coming out in this
Yeah.
band.
I think it is kind of like I was saying, when I go to play something heavy,
Yeah.
that's kind of what comes out is that like it's never going to be like I don't even know what deathcore sounds like. You know what I mean? Like something core or like any other self genres. It's just kind of like when I go to do something heavy, that's kind of the sound that's going to come out.
Right.
And like it's probably a bit like Tom our drummer as well. Like he was big into new metal like when it was the new thing as well. So he kind of like his playing is a bit like that as well. And like obviously like we all like new metal enough to be in a new metal band.
Yeah.
Um, then I suppose like we could like we've yet to go like, okay, well now like we'll try a thrash one and we'll do like a big lead break in the middle. Like it's always kind of like, oh, that's not really the sound we have. But I do think it is kind of just it's the things we like coming out the way it is now. And like just by calling it new metal, there is sort of like a connotation of like, oh, it's new metal, like from before, because that was kind
Yeah.
of when new metal was new. So it's a bit like that. But I don't like we're not deliberately being like a throwback sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like we're not like going out and getting like huge jeans and doing it like as the novelty thing. It's kind of it's like it just so happens that like that's the name for what we're doing is that, and there
Yeah.
is like a small amount of like it has to be a little throwbacky just because it's what it is. Like we're
Hmm.
playing stuff that sounds like the stuff we like. And like occasionally like I will like play a gig in a corn t-shirt or whatever, but like we're not we're not like deliberately going up and doing like like Limp Bizkit cosplay or anything like that. Like it
Right.
is
Right.
like we are genuinely doing it a bit, but we're not doing it to take the piss, even though like we
Right.
do it and separately we take the piss
Yeah.
while we're doing it. Like as well, like we don't we haven't like been just like in a vacuum since new metal kind of stopped the first time. So like there's always gonna be like elements of other things that we like and like there's other stuff that we listen to outside new metal as well. So it all kind of does make its way in.
Hmm.
Especially the electronic stuff, like the kind of electronic stuff that didn't really exist when new metal was doing it.
Hmm.
There was no trap hats in new metal the
Yeah.
first time, stuff like that. So there's like elements that we'll bring in from other stuff.
Is continuity between songs something that you guys think about? Because like when I was listening to your music, I mean, each track really does feel very individualized. It doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like your next song is restrained by your previous song, if you know what I mean. I was wondering, like, do you guys kind of have the idea of being like, well, we can't add this element because that might be a bit too far from our established sound, or is it kind of like, no, whatever the individual track requires is what will dictate how it goes?
I think it is a bit kind of just whatever the song ends up being.
Yeah.
Uh, if Anthem, the only sort of like continuity thing that I started doing is there needs to be more stuff going on.
Mhm.
Like some stuff would have started life as just like, well, it's guitar, bass, drums, or whatever. And I'm like, well, no other songs we do are like that now. So there needs to be more bits. And like the first few songs, like the older songs in our set, um, like the set's not that old, obviously, but like stuff that was written earlier for the set, there's like the least amount of extra stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then like as we kind of crack newer stuff or like bring newer stuff into the set, it's like, oh, there's more bits. So in continuity wise, it's kind of as songs, the songs will sound different, but we want it to sound still like the same sort of presentation, like the same sort of band.
Yeah.
So it's like, like there still has to be, like big something going on in the chorus. So it's not just that. Or um the big one is like since Deb joined the band, she's sang on every song
Yeah.
because we're like, well, part of the sound now is like Deb does the harmony in the songs. So that's like an element of the sound. So like it's kind of the sounds we want continuity in kind of the sounds, but not necessarily like the songwriting. They're always like the songs will kind of sound a bit the same because it's the same four people doing it a little bit.
Right. Right.
And especially like in terms of like me writing riffs, the stuff like the stuff I notice when I'm programming drums for the demos, where I'd be like, I do love having the one not be on the one. I love having it be on like the four and I love doing that little push apparently.
Yeah.
So like I was like, right, next song I can't let myself do that, but then I just do it anyway. But
Yeah.
so like it'll kind of sound a bit the same just because it's the same people doing it. But um we don't really like the new song is I've been calling it a ballad, even though like it's not a ballad.
It's the closest to a ballad, perhaps.
Yeah, it has clean guitars at the start and in the middle, and it's got like a nice three-part harmony in the chorus. So I'm like, yeah, it's a ballad. It's like, it's not a ballad. There's swearing in it.
Yeah, let's talk about it then. So, I mean, the new single is the Optical World. It comes out tomorrow, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
As we're talking. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I was. Well, first of all, I actually want to give you guys a lot of thanks for one thing, which is putting lyrics in your EPK. That like very
Oh,
seldomly happens, and I love when it does happen because I'm like, okay, I can actually kind of engage with the song a bit more rather than have to interpret lyrics. Yeah, I mean, for you guys, I mean, like, how's this song kind of like differ, or at least from your perspective, differ from kind of your previous discography this far?
Uh, it's it's definitely different to the other stuff. It's not as full on heavy in parts of it.
Yeah.
Saying that like the verse is just like this big sort of like Deftonesy riff,
Yeah.
but
I
like
mean,
it
the
is the
intro is
closest thing.
very heavy. The
Yeah,
intro vocals,
yeah,
insane. I think it
yeah,
might be the fucking craziest vocals you guys have put the
yeah,
track so far.
yeah. I think sometimes as well, like I call the demo Shy Tony, and so Colin was like, oh, it's like, oh, it's a Deftones song now. It's like, yeah, I guess kind of because like it's got like big Deftones chords and then like a big kind of chunky riff.
Yeah.
Um, it's got for us just internally, it's got like the most complicated to do part in the bridge and at the end. And it's not even that it's mad complicated. It's just it's me writing it out and programming it, and then being like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. Like that's it's one of the few times. Like I think it was the first time bringing it into a practice and like jamming out a new song, getting to a part and being like, right, how do we do this?
Yeah.
Where's one? How do we count this out? And like it's not like I'm sure if you listen to it, you'd be like, that's not complicated. That's 4/4. But I'd be like, but I put an extra one in. I think like I'm still occasionally like live. I have to count to six in my head,
Yeah.
and occasionally like out loud. And I think that's probably wrong in terms of the
Yeah.
theory. Like it's not in, there's like it's not in six. It's in four. Because I programmed it that way.
Yeah.
But it's got like it's kind of the closest to like a complex thing we have in a song. But like it definitely it's the closest thing to a grunge song I think we have.
And I guess it's also the closest thing you have to a Tool song.
Yeah, yeah. I bet people are going to hear that bridge and be like, "What are you talking about?" It's like it's the third repeat of the riff, and there's that one extra bit, and then
Yeah.
like, sure, fine, yeah, grand.
But so those little things that just fuck you up, man.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
for us, yeah. Anyway,
Actually, one thing that's quite interesting there from what you're saying is I think like, a lot of people can feel when they're writing music kind of limitations as a songwriter in terms of what they're capable of doing in terms of, this dexterity or, just overall skill. But it's interesting. So like programming actually kind of to some degree dictates the outcome of a song. Is that fair to say? Or
sometimes it does. I think in the case of that one, it was just I was doing it to a grid, and I had like the basic thing to a grid, and then I put the little change in, and I made like no allowances for the fact that the riff was different now. So I
Mhm.
was like, well, bar ends there, I guess. Oops. So I was just programming like in four, and I should have been doing like the thing like programming in 1/4. So it's like, look, just do however many beats there are. Because that's how the kick is for us live anyway. Like it's technically like in 1/4. There's no accent on it, so I should have just programmed it that way. But it can sort of dictate what happens sometimes, or accidentally can a little bit if
Yeah.
like I'm programming a part and I play to it, and then like whatever's there, I'm like, well, I guess it's that way now because I've written to that, so it's kind of that way. But
And one other
definitely, like,
thing, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, it's like definitely it can. It doesn't a huge amount, but like it's not out of the question that like you can finish the demo and be like, I guess it's that way now. I'm going to have to go back and figure out what it is.
Just have to dismantle it all again. Yeah, it drives
Yeah.
me insane, man. One thing I really love about this, man, is like when I was reading the EPK, you guys mentioned as a source of influence was Jodorowsky's Dune. I love that documentary, man. And just in case you think I was bullshitting, I have something here that I thought I'd show
No.
off, just to show that I
Oh,
actually am. Yeah, so I'm
oh,
not.
yeah.
I'm not just fronting. Um, but yeah, I was wondering like what was it kind of about that doc that kind of because I love that documentary, man. It's like I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but like even the album art for the single kind of like reminded me of there's a sequence in that film where there's Jodorowsky had for those who don't know it's a documentary about Alejandro Jodorowsky in the 70s was trying to adapt Frank Herbert's Dune into a film and couldn't get funding, just was too ambitious for the time. But he I think wrote a script or at least a treatment for it, and the intro had this kind of very elaborate kind of zoom in, showing the universe kind of shot. And in the documentary, they recreate it as a storyboard, and your single kind of for me anyway. The cover art kind of invoked that again. I don't know if that's was intentional or not. But I was wondering what was the kind of influence of Jodorowsky's Dune on the song.
That's very Colin's department of stuff. A lot of times, like
You just go,
yeah,
oh.
I know. We're like, but he loves because like I think like he's always very proud of what he does. He loves telling us about it, and like his things are always like things that we don't know about. I'm like, man, I don't know, sure.
Yeah.
But initially his thing with that was actually that he just like he thought the documentary was really interesting, and like in the early stages of writing this song and putting it together, he was kind of saying like, oh yeah, it's just about um like the whole idea of like the madness of this idea that Jodorowsky had for it, and like how mad and unfilmable it was. And then he came back one week and was like, I've done some digging on Jodorowsky, and I don't want to do a song about him. And I was like,
Yeah, oh,
oh,
yeah.
okay. um, but then he was like, he's like, I've gone in and I've shaped a bit. So like, it's not about how I think his movie is good. It's about how I, th I might be misrepresenting what Colin means, but it's kind of like the art and the artist thing and being like, this is inspirational, but you can't just look up to this guy because
Right.
he's going to make a mad movie because look at him. And so it seems like it's a bit about that, but yeah, I definitely know like the song was going in the direction of like, oh, this documentary's crazy to be like, I don't, this guy's not so good.
Yeah, yeah, it was the 70s.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, dude, that sucks. Like the idea of like I suppose like with music where everything is like, with films where everything is just kind of like, it is that kind of issue where if you're kind of going to kind of kind of disregard everyone who is problematic, you kind of have no art, unfortunately.
yeah,
But shit that it is that way, man. It'd be kind of cool if you could be like, yeah, I don't know, everyone who makes good art is a good person.
yeah. That'd be nice, but unfortunately not. No.
It's not the reality.
Yeah.
Actually, let me ask you that. Who's your problematic favorite?
Oh, these are from my favorite. I'm trying to think. Um, I don't know. I don't think I would probably. I suppose like I do fucking love Red Hot Chili Peppers,
Yeah,
but there are problems with Anthony Kiedis.
totally. Yeah, yeah.
There's some not great stuff about him.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about that, Blood Sugar Sex Magic is great.
Yeah.
If you don't stop and think about sometimes like for Psychosexual, if you don't listen to what he's actually saying, he's
Yeah.
like actually I don't think you're the hero in this song that you wrote.
That was always the thing I remember with with Guns N' Roses was people would always say like Axl was a piece of shit, while other people would argue, no, he's performative, he's doing a character, like he's embellishing this kind of kind of like hedonistic kind of Californian, scumbag, and it's always like, all right, people always do that shit too, where it's like it's like, well, no, you have to it's part of a character and all. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Anthony can play that after a Red Scar Tissue. I'm like every
Yeah.
chapter every chapter in Scar Tissue was just him going. I was so happy. Everything was the best it had ever been. Everyone's getting along so great. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna just go get high.
Yeah.
And then like the next chapter is like everyone was so upset with me, and all I did was the thing that upset everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like there's one like he got like a fight with his girlfriend. It's like just because she found me in bed with someone else. It's like, what do you mean just Anthony?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
wrote this. Yeah, there's like no self reflection here.
Yeah, I always love that. It's like, yeah, did no one proofread this? Did you not reread it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And at the end of the book, because it's written in like around by the way, he's just
Yeah,
like you know what? I'm still like the whole start of the book is this misdirect where like someone comes in and puts a tourniquet on and injects him. It's like years ago that would have been heroin, but now it's ozone because they had like some hepatitis. But
yeah,
the thing is like also it's actually like the one you get from bad shellfish. It's like I don't mind. But his whole thing at the end of the book is like I'm still clean, and I got this dog, and I stay clean because this dog's never seen me high, and I'm like that dog is long dead.
yeah, yeah. Oh
So,
shit.
so like, I mean, like the following album has a song called Snow. I'm like, and a song called Charlie. So I'm like,
Yeah.
Anthony, come on, come on.
It just needs a song called Mary Jane. Dude, I think I've asked everything I have to ask. I guess one final thing I just want to plug you. It's some shows you have coming up. One I have here is Heavy Era at the Bellow Bar on June 13th. Is there anything else? Any other shows or anything you want to plug? And obviously the
Uh,
single.
oh, definitely the single. if this is any time more than, let me
Oh,
check, more than 7 hours in the future from right now, it's out.
yeah, yeah, it
So
will
as
be.
soon as it's out, yeah, yeah. um, so yeah, definitely like, listen to that. We're very happy with that. And it's not the last thing we'll do. There's more in the way on the way, hopefully.
Mhm.
Um, but gig wise, we have that one in June. Anything else we're doing hasn't been announced yet, so we can't like.
But that'd be the nearest
Yeah,
live date, will it?
that's the nearest one. Yeah, yeah. And like
Okay.
Anthony after that, like it's too far away to be like, hey, here's a gig. It's like, oh no, I don't really remember this. But like Anthony, that's like hasn't been announced by the people whose gigs they are, so like
Yeah.
we don't know that. But keep an eye on Instagram's the main one for us. Like we have Facebook and Twitter, but they just kind of mirror what's going on Instagram. So it's
Right.
cellgames.mp3 is the main
I
place
love
to
that
find
name.
us. Yeah,
Reminds me of the LimeWire days.
yeah. Surprisingly, we found like a lot of bands doing the .mp3, and I'm like, oh, we thought it was really clever. I was like, you go back now.
You're
They
like,
keep
I
an eye
thought it
on.
was being hilarious and original, but it's just being hilarious.
Yeah, I just was a side as well.
Yeah.
I'm in a new metal band. I can't complain about original ideas. But
Puts cell games dot wav and then you're like, yes. No one thought
I
of
I
wav.
I thought of M4A, and everyone was like, "That's stupid. That's too that's too obscure." No one's going to remember to look that up. I'm like,
Dude,
"Yeah,
I always
fine,
have to
MP3."
convert from M4A to edit M4A to MP3 because Zoom records all these as M4A, so I always have to
Oh,
fucking convert them.
yeah. So you'd be like, "Oh, that's good. It's annoying though."
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, if people keep an eye on that anyway, that's like when stuff's coming up, it'll be there. It'll be in the link tree on there. If it's a ticketed thing, like the tickets always go in there.
Yeah.
And then like any posts about like in the lead up things, I personally get very annoyed about it. I just tell everyone about it all the time. Um,
Some people will know.
any, any social media stuff like in my own personal life in the run up to a gig, I will try and frame it as being about the gig. like I'm in the gym getting ready for this gig, and it's like you get ready to stand in one spot for half an hour. What do you mean?
In your car rolling down the window, going to a gig.
It's like, oh, I'm getting petrol for the gig. Yeah, but June's the next one. But um, I'll say we were doing something a few weeks ago, and it was like coming to the end, and it was plugs, and it was at the end of April. It was like, oh man, I wish this was 2 weeks ago because we had consecutive Fridays all the way through April to be
Yeah.
plugging. But yeah, the single's the next big one anyway, and that June gig. But that's not to say like we're staying completely dormant in between. Like stuff could come up, um, hitting the studio in between as well for the next thing. Because it's good to be one thing ahead at all times.
And one other thing I
Um,
wanted to ask, actually, sorry, just
no problem.
in terms of like you mentioned there the gigs and recording. I mean, are you guys kind of looking towards the future to do an EP or an album, or are you content with the single so far? And just in general, when it kind of comes to your live shows, are you looking to tour around either domestically or abroad even?
So with this the releases, we're looking at the moment to kind of be sort of singles heavy.
Mhm.
We do have an idea for an EP um, that's not just as straightforward as like here's a bunch of new songs. I
Right.
don't want to spoil the idea because I thought of really good. I thought of a really good artwork for it. Um, that my girlfriend Jade, who does all our artwork and like anything on our socials that looks good, Jade did that. Uh, and music that sounds good, Josh Robinson did that. Um, and I just show up and like the sleeves cut off my t-shirt and do the gigs. Um, but
You're too
we have an idea.
modest.
We have like an EP idea thing, a collection of songs, sort of an idea coming up.
Yeah.
Other than that, like it's largely singles oriented. We had this whole thing is like, oh, we're going to do like at the end of last year, we're like, oh yeah, we're going to put out this EP with the two singles that are on it, and we're going to have this. And then we got like say by February, and we're like, just do the singles. Like the singles are great. Singles are kind of how it is now as well. Like kind of
Yeah.
like they
It's
just kind of
single
come the way.
heavy.
Yeah.
You have to kind
And
of
if you want,
constantly be pushing. Sorry.
yeah, and if you want to treat it like an album, you can just go to like the artist page on Spotify and you like just go through it. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
'cause we always consciously from the second song we did with Josh JSR Audio of the North from the second song we did with him, we were like it has to sound the same as the previous song. They all have to sound like it's the same band in the same place. and the same collection of things. So if it does ever come together, it's like, oh yeah, it's that. Like, so we don't just have like all these mad things that need to be remastered. Like so, it's intended to be cohesive. Um, the other question then, in terms of like gigging around the place, we are trying to get like further outside Dublin a little bit.
Mhm.
That's one of the ones that we can't completely announce because like it's not up to us to announce it, sort of a thing. Like
Sure, sure.
it's not our gig. It's a gig we're on. Um, so we're looking to do something like that. We are trying to figure out the logistics of doing like some back to back bits around the place, and it's just, the place, the country, the
Mhm.
place. Um,
The
it's
island.
just kind of yeah, it's just a matter of like actually sitting down and going like, right, where, and what works for everyone, and what works for the places we want to go to. Because we could be like, oh yeah, just this weekend, and then like we went to venues, and they'd be like, no, there's no spots here.
Yeah.
And we'd love to get to the UK if we can. I've kind of put the feelers out for some stuff there. And then it's just like figuring out the logistics of getting the ferry and stuff like that. Figuring out does my insurance work in the UK? Let's find out. But yeah, it's
It's
like
good.
we're
It's a
kind of
good
like
way to figure out.
yeah, just showing up there and being like, is this okay? I can't go back. I don't have a ticket for the ferry back yet, so like we gotta wait.
Yeah.
Like back here, but yeah, like so we're kind of putting the feelers out for stuff like that. We have like obviously like, one-off things around the place as well, but the aim is to like hopefully do a few back-to-back things. But I suppose like it's a tour in the sense, but like a lot of times, if something's in Ireland, you can kind of go home in between anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to be committed to the road like you do maybe in
Yeah,
somewhere like the US, Canada, or Australia or Germany even.
yeah, yeah. I remember I was looking up a YouTuber I follow. He was talking about like the way his band would tour,
Yeah.
and he was saying like the way they plan it is like they have a set amount of time they're willing to drive from one place, and then once they hit that time on the way to the next place, they'll stop and check in somewhere, and then wake up with enough time to like work backwards from when they have to be in the next place. And I was like, that doesn't work here. Like everywhere's like at most the most it'll be is 3 hours.
Hmm.
That's fine. They're like, oh, we'll drive 6 hours, and after that we'll call it quits. And then we have
Yeah.
to work back and make sure it's not more than 4 hours because otherwise we're tight. And I was like, talking about
Yeah. You guys are like,
like
oh, an
everyone's
hour and a half to Kilkenny. Oh.
ah yeah, like we drive to Belfast for recording, and that's almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, like what am I talking about? Like that's nothing. That's grand.
Dude, I have a good
That's
idea
shorter than
for you,
some
right?
films.
So
Yeah,
today it was announced they have that portal thing. I don't know if you heard about this on I think it's North Earl Street where it connects North Earl Street over here to Fifth Avenue in New York. So it's like it's basically it's a portal, but it's like just like a camera. So basically you look
yeah.
in there, you can see New York, they look on their end, they can see Dublin. So just just stand out there, do some busking in front of that, and you can say you played New York, I guess.
That'd be gas. On this horrible
We
lag on
played on
both
Fifth
ends.
Avenue. Yeah, it's a really weird street to put it. Like you think it'd be, I don't know, like North Earl Street. It's just beside the Joyce statue, I believe. So it's
Yeah.
just a
And
very
maybe
odd.
maybe it can't get too much foot traffic. Maybe they're like, well, we can't
Yeah.
put it directly in harm's way, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Put in the middle of a road. Oh.
Yeah. I put
Um,
it like in Grafton Street, and it's just people in the way. You can't see anything,
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. It's just like that stampede scene from The Lion King. Um, I was wondering, one final thing I really want to ask, I'll leave you alone after this.
Oh,
Um,
fine.
when it comes to cell games, you were mentioning kind of like recreating some of the kind of production flares live. I was wondering, do you ever see cell games kind of expanding to add more members in, like I don't know, like keyboards or even a scratch or anything, or is it just like no, this is going to be the core band and everything else we'll just kind of like figure out as we go.
I think everything that's like not live band, just being on tracks, does
Yeah.
kind of seem to be the best way to do it for us. Um, Especially because like if there was like a live keyboard player in the band, they kind of have just long stretches of not doing anything, and there'd be lots of me being like do it the way I did it on my weird plugin and stuff like that. But the trend with a lot of stuff, it does seem to be like just like stuff is not the trend, but like kind of the way it is now is like a lot of stuff is just on tracks, and like
Yeah.
there wouldn't be live keys that often. Um, I think the band being the band it is now is kind of the ideal situation. Like unless we do like a big gig that requires like it's so big that novelty is like, oh, there's six people on stage because there's live keys and there's like someone doing live scratching or whatever. But outside that, like really, the band is kind of just like the four. I don't even want a second guitar player, even though like I know a lot of times people would get like a second guitar in to fill it out.
Yeah.
But I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with a guitar player. Like I am on, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, if you got a second guitar player, you could just focus on harmony.
I'm like, that'd be the only thing. It's just like me doing like harmonies that don't fit our music because I think it's funny, and like no one would be happy with that. It wouldn't it wouldn't serve the purpose. But like I don't think we're not like every time I Bring Me the Horizon have like
Yeah.
a guy he just doubles all the guitar parts and does like all like fills all the holes in the backing vocals and stuff. Even though there's tracks as well, just to fill it that much more. Like we're not that size. We're not Bring Me the Horizon doing that. So
Right.
one guitar is almost too many, I think.
Fair. Thanks very much for your time, man. You've been very,
No
very
problem.
gracious. Yeah, I guess the final thing to say, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or
Um, just follow Cell Games on all the things because sometimes we're really funny on there, but you learn something as well. I
yeah.
don't know what you learned about with Cell Games.
Thanks very much for your time. Well, you're still
No
learning
problem.
about cell games. You're watching the anime at the moment, so
Yeah, they're on Namek now. Um, and a while ago I was like, oh man, they're nearly at Namek, and Colin was like, okay, just keep watching. And I was like,
be
there's
patient.
a fake Namek. Are you serious? That wasn't Namek at all. Um, so hopefully I find out who Cell is, and I hope he's really cool because we have him on some of our merch, and I'm not sure if that's okay, but he's on some of our merch.
You're just gonna walk into the city one day, go, God damn it, I just got to it, and just like you're gonna be pissed off.
I'm gonna be like, this is our guy. I can't believe this.
Thanks very much for your time, man. Enjoy the rest
No
of your
problem.
day.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. See you next.
Best of luck. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing, and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.